This COVID-19 crisis may be the worst crisis this present generation is facing. But down memory lane, do you know that some of the Filipinos also experienced decades of health nightmare? They too faced a different kind of contagious disease that shocked them and left a scar which for some reminds them of agonies and extraordinary circumstances. 3 years ago, I packed my bag and went on an exciting journey towards an island facing the South China Sea. What interests me about this place is the fact that this island I'm gonna introduce to you was isolated from the country for more or less 100 years.
And now we are on our way to Culion Island, known to be the last frontier of the Philippines.
Culion Island, a municipality of Palawan. We rarely hear about this place, maybe because nobody wants to talk about it, knowing that it was once dubbed as the land of the living dead and the land of no return. As we approached the island, I saw a giant white eagle carved on a hill. My co-passengers who are residents there told me that this is the logo of the Philippine Health Services. They call that landmark Historical Aguila Viewpoint. That landmark implies that this island used to be a center of attention by the country's health workers. As we arrived, some residents warmly welcomed their relatives. Some of them have never visited the place again after they left for greener pasture. Some of them confessed the dark history of this place simply haunts them. Culion used to be a segregation colony of leprosy patients in the country during the American Commonwealth of the Philippines. In fact, Culion became the largest leprosaria in the world. Leprosy, a contagious disease caused by Bacillus mycobacterium leprae, was rampant during that time. There was no cure for the disease yet. That was why the government decided to just isolate all the lepers just in one island. Do you know that the first batch of lepers who arrived in Culion were the 370 Cebuanos? They arrived here on May 27, 1906. The following years, the rest of the lepers from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao arrived here. That is why Culion Island is also known as the Little Philippines. Let me share with you what I've gathered from the people of Culion, from the historical sites, and from Culion Museum and Archives. During the leprosy outbreak, patients would travel thousands of kilometers to be transported and be isolated in Culion. Before, they covered their whole body because some of their body parts were disfigured. Leprosy manifests in the skin, peripheral nerves, and other parts of the body. And because there was still no medicine that could cure leprosy during that time, and the disease itself was under experimentation, lepers who set foot on the island of Culion could no longer go back to their respective provinces. That's why Culion is called the land of no return. Can you imagine if it was your loved one being sent there for the rest of his or her life? I guess it is unbearable, isn't it? But that was the reality. That's why the lepers who were sent there chose to marry their fellow lepers. This tricycle driver in Culion speaks Cebuano because his grandparents are Cebuanos who were part of the first batch who arrived here in 1906.
So mao to sila yung mga una jud nga mga naanhi diri sa Culion. Kaloy si ginawa man pud ni sa muwa tong sakit nga leprosy. Kadaghanan diri sir mga Bisaya. Pero na po yung nagsagol-sagol ng mga lingwahe na po yung mga Ilocano, mga Ilonggo.
Before, for babies upon birth, babies would be separated from their family, even from their mom, for 2 to 3 years in the nursery. Benji was one of those babies.
Ang mother ko ay Bulangenya, tapos ang father ko ay taga Misamis Oriental. So dito sila nagtagpo sa Kulyon. At dito sila nagkakilala hanggang sa kasawa sila. Nilalayo kami sa magulang namin dahil inobserba mo na yung mga bata na gano'n dahil yung mga magulang namin nagkaroon ng kapansanan na hindi kasi nga ngayon bawat isa sa amin ay nagto 2 years kami sa kung tawagin ay nursery for protection.
Not only that, all the lepers and their families were isolated in one place in an already isolated island.
Mahinungdanon kini mao nga adto dinhi sa isla sa Kulyon tungod kay kaniadto mao kini ang gabuwag sa mga adunay sakit nga sangla ug sa mga walay sakit.
I've talked with the residents of Culion and they told me that they had this notion before that if you were born in Culion, you will die in Culion. With all the physical appearances and with the seemingly hopeless situations of the lepers in Culion, seemed like they didn't have the right to dream. Their dreams were already dead. Their bodies are considered dead. That's why the island is also called as the land of the living dead. Thus, the government provided everything for them there. Structures were built. They had the teatro, a place where they can watch movies or do some sporting events. The grand stairway, where they would gather and would play every afternoon. The general kitchen, where food was distributed every day. While the rest of the Filipinos were using the same Philippine money, the people of Culion used a different set of coin and paper money. Because there was no treatment of leprosy yet, hundreds died every day. From the 370 patients in 1906, lepers in the colony increased to more than 5,000 on its 5th year. Of these, more than 3,000 died. By 1931, the lepers population in Culion reached to more than 16,000. By the end of 1980, it reached its highest with almost 32,000 patients. After a series of study about leprosy, it was only during 1980s when the multi-drug therapy was discovered as treatment for leprosy. And take note, it was only in 2006 when the World Health Organization declared Culion as leprosy-free. Friends, from 1906 to 2006, we are talking here of 100 years. During my visit there, I had the privilege to meet some of the leprosy survivors. Meet Tatay Sally. He is completely healed by leprosy, but the effects of it are but apparent in his body. That time I visited them, he served as a janitor in his place.
40 lang ko, naayon ako, 40. Dugay na akong nanikatin.
So sa mga kadakong pasalamat nimo tay nga naayo na ka.
O siyempre, pasalamat ko sa Ginoo kay iya pa rin kung ihatagan sa taas kinabuhi mo kung walang, kaya ako dire.
Meet the Muslim Midal Ali. He has been here in Culion for 20 years.
Hindi ko rin alam. Dito sakit ko pala, lepra. Diyan ako sa Brooks Point. Sulta ako sa doktor. Sabi yung mga doktor sa Brooks Point, allergic daw.
Tapos
Hindi naman makaramdam yung naman. Kinurot na kapatid ko, hindi naman makaramdam. Nagpunta na ako rito.
may pamilya ka ba?
Meron po doon sa Borneo.
Borneo? May mga anak ko ba kayo?
Oh, meron.
Ilang anak niyo po?
Buhay 4 na lang. At saka ayaw nila na rin sa akin nalepra na
Bakit pag nalepra ba ayaw na sa pamilya?
Ayaw ko ba sa kanila?
Bakit?
Hindi ko rin alam. Tinanong ko nga doon,
Tay, ipakita mo sa akin yung sakit mo. Saan? Dito.
Ito lang po.
Yan. Yung unang normal yan.
Oo.
Ha?
1995.
Oo.
Pa yan.
Tatay Ray, on the other hand, has been depending on his wheelchair as he could no longer walk. He is a barber here.
Baliktad ang lapa-lapa ba? Kaya pinapaputol ko na lang. Manopi ko, pero wala may customer. Tapos na rin ako, putol ng paa ko. Pero kung meron may customer, pwede pa mang gawin ko kay meron man ako artificial leg.
I was greatly encouraged by their lives. Despite their situations, I saw a certain kind of joy and peace in their hearts. And after our conversations, we prayed for them.
Tunayan mo sa amin na mahal na pinadala mo ang anak ko si Jesus sa aming kalikasan at sa sakripisyo. May mga bagay sa buhay namin na hindi ko namin naiintindihan katulad ng pagkakasakit.
3 years after my last visit there, I just wondered how are they today, especially during the time of pandemic. And so I thought of reconnecting with them. God is just so good because He provided me people for me to be able to connect with them, with those tatays in Culion. This time, connecting them online. Tatay Midal, naalala niyo ba ako, Tatay Midal?
Oo, kita rito eh.
Kumusta ko kayo?
Okay lang?
Hindi ka ba nakalabas ng Culion? No, simula nung nagkita tayo dyan?
Hindi ako na hindi ako na bakasyon doon. Wala pa akong pera eh.
Okay.
Pamasahe, mahal.
Pero okay lang kayo dyan? Okay ka lang dyan?
Oo, okay lang.
Anong pinagkakabalahan nyo ngayon?
Basta nakapera na para makita ko pamilya ko. Punta rin ako doon sa Mapon Tawi-Tawi.
Oh, sa Tawi-Tawi.
Matagal na hindi ko nakita sila, 20 anyos na.
20 years na.
Oo, 20 na. 2000 pa yun. Namimiss na.
Tay, ngayong may COVID dyan. Kumusta yung sitwasyon dyan? Ikaw, natatakot ka ba sa COVID?
Hindi naman. Una nanim-tanim.
Nananom ka? Kung saan may tanom mo?
Hindi sa bahay. Yan lang.
Nakakadiha sa ward Nakakadiha sa ward hapon?
Oo, dito sa bahay namin. Dito.
Ano?
Hindi naman ako nagtrabaho. Pero meron akong alagang manok.
Galing ah.
Oo.
Tapos,
Para ba mapawisan ako ba?
Tay, maraming salamat ah.
Hindi pa ako mahiya. Hindi ko makuha kay bigay ito ni Lord.
Salamat kayo, Tay. Salamat kayo ninyo.
Salamat din, salamat.
Oo, we'll see you. Ha?
Ingat kayo dyan.
Okay. Picture ako ha, Tatay.
Okay.
However, I learned from Tatay Midal that Tatay Ray already passed away last year. Tatay Midal missed his friend and barber. On that visit in Culion, I realized that all of us experience nightmares. Some are intense, some are not. Some are short, some last for decades. But no matter how worse, no matter how intense, no matter how dark that nightmare may be, the history of Culion gives us a clear message that there is always an end to every nightmare. This pandemic that we are facing today will surely end and will soon be part of history, a dark history like that of Culion. As to the question, when will this end? That I cannot answer. But there is one thing I am sure of. The God who holds our lives, the God who holds all of our time and all of our future, goes before us. He is in control and He has plans for all these things. God sees all things perfectly, more than enough reason for us to completely rely on Him. Surely, the dark history of Culion left a scar to the people, but they made a choice not to let every scar enslave them. The people have learned that life is a journey, and that journey must continue. It is just a matter of in whom do they put their trust. If you would ask me if I would go back to Culion again, it is definitely a yes. Culion is not a land of no return. It is a land where everyone who pays a visit always returns. It is not a land of the living dead. It is a land of beautiful people, so much alive and free. I miss the overlooking view of Culion and the neighboring islands. I miss the clear waters of Languyang Bayan. I miss the lush and verdant valleys. I miss Kasoy. I miss the century-old structures. I miss the Culion Museum and Archives, which by the way, in 2018, was officially nominated by the Philippines in the UNESCO Memory of the World Register, Asia and the Pacific. Everything in here will help Culion to become a World Heritage Site in the future. And most of all, I miss the beautiful people of Culion. For sure, there are so much things to explore in this island.
Choose Culion, choose Philippines!
Thank you for joining me today. Again, feel free to subscribe. I am just so blessed that you are sailing with me in this whole new journey.